The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Keefer and Kurre Sports is back at you here on Tony Kurre Radio. And of course, there is a million different things you're into. I'm doing a million things myself. So Keefer and Kurre Sports can be heard on every major industry out there when it comes to podcasts. Of course, you can see it, you can watch it, you can hear it, you can see it on our YouTube channel. And then, of course, we also have our television show coming up here on ABC 3340, 10:30, 11 o'clock, right there on ABC 3340. So looking forward to that. I see you every week. And I know you've got a ton going on. I know you're doing a lot of traveling. You are going to be going to the SEC meetings. I don't want you to talk about that in just a second. But I did want to ask you, did you get an invite to the Taylor Swift wedding, first of all? And second of all, have you, because you know it's some pretty high up people, right? Yep. Have you ever been in a situation where you were asked to sign an NDA before you went to someone's wedding?
No, I have not. I have been instructed that I'm not to talk about what's going to happen, but I've never actually had to sign a document. And shockingly, I was left off of the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift nuptials at Madison Square Garden. That's a little ostentatious. They had a couple thousand guests in an 18,000 seat arena. I find that to be kind of interesting, but no, I did not make the guest list, unfortunately. And I probably would have had to decline anyway. I'm too busy for such nonsense.
Well, you know, it's funny because we were talking about this on we do a show on Fox 6. The Kurre and Claypo show. We're on there every single week on Thursdays. And we were talking about being invited to weddings. And a lot of people obviously were upset because some people were getting plus ones. Some people weren't getting plus ones.
Yeah, that was crazy.
If you were married, you were automatically in. And if you weren't married, then you weren't allowed to bring even if it was a fiance, you weren't allowed to bring them in. And for obvious reasons. And I can remember, and I don't think you mind me saying this, but when I went to Jay Barker's wedding, and I was honored to be asked to go to that, and Sarah Evans obviously is a country music superstar. There were some rules. They had a deal with People magazine for all pictures. And so you weren't allowed to have your cell phone. And they had signed off on a deal that it was a People magazine wedding. And they were going to do a special piece in the magazine on their wedding, which obviously was going to behoove them and help them out. And so all pictures came from them. And so we had to leave our phones, and we had no clue where the wedding was going to be. So we would go to a hotel. There was one of four places we could go to. It was exciting. I mean, I felt like I was a celebrity. And you get there, and they come pick you up in a bus. They didn't blindfold us.
That's good.
But they took us on this ride for 45 minutes in the country to this farm, which I could not tell you where it is to save my life right now. It was beautiful. It was a private farm, and that's where they got married. It was just gorgeous. Oh, wow. And I did have a chance. At one point, I was there with my wife at the time, and this woman taps me on the shoulder, and she said, "Would you like to dance with me?" And it was Sheryl Crow.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I looked over and I saw Sarah kind of laughing. I don't know if she put her up to it or what it was, but I looked at Nancy, my wife at the time. I said, she goes, "Go for it. If you think you can have that, you can knock yourself out." And I said, "Okay." I said, "That's fine." So we danced kind of like it was like one of those R&B songs. It wasn't really fast. And then a slow song came on, and she said, "Well, this is where you make your move. When a guy dances with a girl, the slow song comes on next. It's perfect timing for you because now you can ask me to slow dance and you get to feel this up." And I said, "Hey," and I looked over at my wife, and at this point, I think she started getting pissed off a little bit. And I said, "She said I could dance with you," so I danced with her. So I've got several pictures of me dancing with Sheryl Crow. So it was, nice. it was really, really. There were several other people that were there, but it was really neat to be part of something that was so secretive. And so, in the fact that I actually knew somebody that was so high up to be in a situation like that was really, really cool. So that was nice. But I do remember there were several people at the radio station that weren't married, and they wanted to bring their plus ones, and Jay said no. And they got angry with him. He's like, "Sorry, it's just, that's the way it is." Some people wanted to bring people just to say they could be at Jay Barker and Sarah Evans' wedding to see who was going to show up. And so I certainly understood that. So that was kind of interesting. All right. I got some stuff. I can't wait till college football season.
Oh, it's going to be here really quick in just 6 weeks.
I know we're doing the show, and it's time is going by so flipping fast. I got so many things that I want to do right now. If you're watching our show, you kind of change the way we do the show. We each get like a 5-minute bit. I'm trying to do the best I can to make my 5 minutes as good as anything on the television program. You're traveling the country, going to SC Media Days. You're in Atlanta, and you're in Las Vegas. You're doing live shots, and of course you got the legend who was always doing his thing. Terry doesn't, and so I'm scrambling, man, because I want to make college football. I want to be on my game.
Absolutely.
The best I possibly can be. With that being said, we're sitting here on a Tuesday. It is July 14th, and everyone thinks that I'd be wanting to talk about soccer. Finally, it's going to end. The World Cup with one game today, one game tomorrow, and then of course the games on Sunday. And I'm not going to talk about anything.
And can I throw this in, Tony?
Absolutely.
It's so important here in America that the game is on a Tuesday, and it's not
at 2
on prime time. It's at 2:00,
and
the reason
Texas.
for that is the only people that give a damn about this stupid soccer game are Euros, and it's prime time in Europe. That's why it's a 2:00 Tuesday game. That tells you everything you need to know about Americans' attitudes of soccer. 2:00 on a Tuesday. It's unprecedented. Can you imagine an NFL playoff game or a big college playoff game at 2:00 on a Tuesday?
And the championship game Sunday at 3.
Yeah,
so it's not even prime time on. No, I totally get it. Listen, I think it's great. I think anytime we have more sports, I think it's great. If you want to, monetize cricket or whatever you want to watch,
I got you.
Good for people. I'm super happy. I do think it was great for our country to host it. I
love the event. I hate the sport.
I do too. I think that's a great way to put it. I think it's fantastic. I went down to Good People last week, and the place people were hanging from the rafters. I don't, and they couldn't have all been from South Africa. I mean, there were Americans who were really, and the one thing about American, I'll tell you this, we love to latch on. Now, we'll take St. Patty's Day and we'll turn that son of a bitch into the best doggone. People in Ireland don't celebrate St. Patty's Day, but Americans will. We'll take Cinco de Mayo and we'll blow that thing out. We'll make that the biggest damn party in the world. So we know how to take things and turn them into Americanize those types of things and make it big. And I think we've done that with soccer. So who knows the folks that have actually gotten a chance to enjoy. And the one thing that I do think is pretty good, I will watch because I have a son. And yes, I am codependent on his love. If he's like, Dad, you're going to watch the soccer. Of course I am. I maybe take a nap during it today at 2:00.
Yeah. But I like to stay awake, so I'm not watching it yet.
It is the equivalent of the 4 number ones in March Madness making the Final Four. The 4 teams that are in have been 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the last 2 years. But
isn't it nice that it's the 17th and 18th century again for just a couple of days? England, France, and Spain once again are prominent nations.
Yeah, that's right.
In reality, now they're all 3 dumpster fires.
And because of one guy, Argentina is always going to be in the mix. All right, let's talk some college football. Saw this really interesting article. I follow this guy, and I think he does a pretty good job. He's writes for CBS. His name's Brad Crawford. Yeah. And he's a little snarky. But he wrote this article on college football and the CFP, some dark horses and stuff, and it was written yesterday. And so I want to go through from top to bottom his contenders, his pretenders, and his dark horses. And he's like, it's really interesting because going into this year he said, it's been more fun going into college football season this year, and it will be for you and me and everyone else part of our television show and our radio show, because we have a totally different way of looking at college football now because of the money instrument that's part of this. And not in a million years. And you know this. You were like, Indiana will get blown out. They will get killed. Well, they didn't. They ended up winning a national title and a Heisman Trophy. And one of the big reasons they were is because of the money they had behind that program. So now you have to start looking at, okay, it's not just the X's and O's. It's not just the recruiting. It's not just the coach. It's not just the assistant coaches, but it's how much money you have in your coffers, period. And I would go as far as to say, and this would be a great show we could do on television. Like what are the top 5 priorities in college football? Would you say money is the number one thing? I mean, outside having a coach, would you rather have $20 million in your coffers and have Alex Golish, or would you rather have, someone like Lane Kiffin and have $5 million in your coffers? I don't know, but I do think you have to have both in order to win national titles. Yeah, so all of a sudden, you started looking. You got a thought on that?
Yeah, that would have been my answer. The money, absolutely. But you better have people that know what the hell they're doing, because I think there's a long list of sports history and precedent out there that just spending money like drunken sailors does not necessarily get the job done. You can look at the Yankees. They have not won a World Series in 30 years, and they spend lavishly. They spend their money unwisely. You look at Florida State. They reloaded a couple of years ago after the disastrous injury to Travis Minor that knocked them out of the playoffs, which people still are bitching about. And they bought a whole team for the next year. Even experts like my son Case had Florida highly ranked going into the season 2 years ago. Remember what happened? They started in Ireland. They fell on their face. They finished 2-10, Tony, with the second highest payroll in the whole country. Mm-hmm. And then last year, this time, everybody was raving about what Brian Kelly had done at LSU. He had brought in this unbelievable class of all of these major talents. LSU was going to be absolutely loaded on both sides of the ball. And Brian Kelly didn't make it to week 8. He was fired after they lost their third game. They were 5-3 at the time. Of course, they beat a couple of cupcakes.
He's working for CBS now, right?
For CBS. This is so rich. He's working for CBS on the Mountain West package that they have. So Brian Kelly, Mr. Primetime, is going to be coming to us from Butte, Montana, and Boise, Idaho, and it's going to be great.
Oh, I love that. There's several programs going into this year, and it's funny because I actually did a segment on this on our television program. I wanted to find out the top 10 alumni organizations in the United States. Alabama has slightly over 200,000 people in their alumni associations, yet there's alumni associations where Indiana has over 800,000. And I said, if you're writing a letter.
And Mark Cuban.
Yeah, if you write a letter to say, listen, if everyone just puts $1 in the basket on Sundays, you could build a monster church. Okay.
Oh,
it's just like taxes in this country. If everyone would just pay their share, we would have more money. To do with. It'd be unbelievable. So if every Indiana alumnus just pays $25 one time, they're going to have more money than what to do with for the next 100 years. And that's going to turn into national titles, and it will trickle down in their entire sports thing. And I think of teams like A&M. What happened? I think of the coach they had there. I think of Johnny Manziel and all the money that poured into A&M and how impressive that what was it, Summerlin? I think about
Summerlin and Jimbo Fisher. I think of Notre Dame, who they've sniffed it recently, but haven't won a national title in forever. I think about teams like Nebraska that I used to grow up learning to love, and they were just fantastic. And where are they now? They're just nowhere. And so now we're just shaking this bag up. So I want to go through the list of teams. I'm going to go from best to worst. And these are all teams that he thinks has a legitimate chance at winning a national title in 2026. Okay. Which we did this last year, and I had problems with like 3 of the top 5, including number 1 Texas, and turned out to be right about that. So I'm ready to go.
So I know your son is high on this one, but he's got Marcus Freeman's Notre Dame squad. He thinks they're lights out. Not only do they bring back All-American candidates on both sides of the football, but they only faced a couple teams during the regular season capable of matching up with them. Notre Dame is favored in every single football game this season.
And Notre Dame gets those 2 games against teams that make sense. Miami and BYU at home. Yep. You know what I always say, Tony? It's not how you play. It's who you play and where you play.
Boy,
Notre Dame's schedule is
it's crazy too, because when I was doing sports radio, man, I would always put Notre Dame's schedule up against anybody's because
not anymore.
Not anymore, because they weren't in a conference, and they would play Miami. They never played Vanderbilt. They never played Utah.
They played USC for 43 years in a row. USC is no longer on the schedule.
They were consistently SOS, one of the best teams, because they never got a break. They never got that cupcake they were playing. And I was always wanting to put, and I was a Catholic guy, and I was from that area of the country. And so Notre Dame was, but now, Notre Dame's learning. They're going, hey, listen, we don't have to play USC every single year. We don't
played Michigan or Michigan State every year. Yep. And those were the years where Michigan State was still relevant. Michigan, always a tough game. Yeah, you're right. Notre Dame has transformed from playing the most rigid schedule in the country to this year's is just an absolute joke.
There's no doubt. The next team, 82-12 as a head coach. That's Ryan Day. Julian saying, I know we don't really know a whole lot about this kid. They got Jeremiah Smith coming back. So from a quarterback, wide receiver standpoint, that's great. But you don't make a football team by having a great wide receiver and a great quarterback. You need to have great line.
And let me ask you this question. Ryan Day's always in the top coaches think because of his record. But I keep looking back at last year. Ryan Day had 15 draft choices in the recent NFL draft on his team. He had 5 in the top, I think 14 or 15 in the draft this year. So with that loaded team, how does Ohio State only score 1 touchdown in both of their last 2 games to get eliminated by Indiana and then Miami? Inexcusable. Ryan Day took over play calling late in the season, and Ohio State's offense just hit the skids because once again, last year they played just an embarrassingly bad schedule. They didn't even play Indiana until the championship game and lost in a close game. They were inside the 10 twice. And people are talking about Julian Sayin, the quarterback, being a Heisman Trophy candidate. Tony, show me something, Julian. I'm just saying, Julian, I don't think you're a top-flight quarterback because in the 2 biggest games last year when the lights were the brightest, Sayin made 2 critical mistakes through an interception and lost a fumble on a sack that set Miami up for that win. So I'm not from Missouri, but Julian Sayin's going to have to show me. I don't think he's an elite quarterback. That's just my opinion.
And I can't believe I'm saying this. My brother and sister both went to Ohio State, and they'll both say the same thing. They are Ryan Day'd out. Listen, he won a national title. He finally got off that hoof. He finally beat Michigan after 4 or 5 tries. He finally got that off his thing. And they would not be angry or disappointed at all if for some reason Ryan Day decided to hang it up and go call games in the Mountain West with Brian Kelly.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you, they wanted a national title. They got it with him. They're tired of the fake beard. They're tired of the black hair, and they think that he, like you just said, 15 guys. He's right now on pace to have 8 more guys go in the first round in 2026.
It's unbelievable.
Before they've even taken a snap. So they better be there. But you're also talking about a football team that doesn't play outside the state of Ohio for the first 3 months of the year.
Just unbelievable. And their schedule really embarrassing again this year. But I just don't know. If Ohio State is so loaded, why don't they win it every year? And they don't. They've only won it once in the last 8 or 10 years. So Ryan Day, a great coach. I don't see it.
And they still think that Indiana, they still say if they played Indiana tomorrow, they would beat them 10, 11 times. I said, okay, then do that. But I mean, they did. The one time you played them, you got smoked. I loved this 3 team. I had them winning the national title outside Clemson last year, which I was way off. But I love Dan Lanning. I just think he's fantastic. Dante Moore is back again as a quarterback. I thought he was going to be really good last year. He was really good. Oregon is the 3rd best team he's got right now. They think if you can't get it done with that staff right now at Oregon, you may never get it done with Dan Lanning. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big year for Dan because Oregon in the last 2 playoffs have been, they're the pretty team that everybody likes because they throw the ball down the field. They've got fleet-footed wide receivers. Look at that track meet against James Madison, how bad they made them look. They had guys like 30 yards down the field, and the next closest defensive back was, in another county. But they have run up against teams in the last 2 years that have just completely battered them physically. They've added a bunch of extra beef on the defensive side of the ball, supposedly to try to address that. I don't know about their offensive line in my research on Oregon this year, because just like Alabama proved last year, football is still pretty fundamental, Tony. Everything has changed except for one thing. You better be damn strong on both interior fronts, offensively and defensively, or that's where games are won and lost. It's a matchup, and a lot of fans don't understand this. You are across from another guy, and whoever wins that battle on every play, whoever wins the majority of those, it is typically the team that controls the game. Now, there's fluky games where weird things happen, but it still comes down to those hosses on the front line. And I just don't know if Oregon can line up and run the football. They can against some weak-ass Western teams, but when they've played the stronger teams from the Big Ten and last year Miami just exposed them. They just flat ran over them. And also Oregon could not run the ball at all. So Dan Lanny's going to have to show me, and now he loses his offensive coordinator that a lot of people think was the real brains behind the offensive success. Will Stein is now the head coach at Kentucky. So I don't know who he replaced him with, but he better be damn good, because Lanning's got a lot to prove this year, and the experts are just in love with this team. I color me skeptical.
Okay. A lot of people think this next team could win it all. Preseason number one for a lot. Mario Cristobal, despite the fact that I didn't think he was a great coach, he got it done as an underdog against Ohio State, knocked off A&M, got where he had to be. Now Darian Mensah comes in from Duke. Here's one of these quarterbacks where we've been talking about Darian, and it hasn't really proven anything to this point. The fact that he's really smart and he comes from Duke, he's the quarterback.
Well, his name's Mensah, so he's supposed to be smart.
Yeah. Well, it seems like everyone that just goes to show, just because we talk a lot about a guy doesn't mean he's going to be really good at quarterback, because I didn't know anything about Mensah before, of course, his lawsuit and everything. It went down at Duke, and now he's got a chance to transfer and goes to Miami. And all of a sudden they're saying he could be your Heisman Trophy winner. Preseason number one. A lot of people have the University of U. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, the U, they are loaded up with talent. They lost a lot of major players in the draft. Bain, the fantastic defensive lineman. So I don't know. Their schedule too is extremely weak, and I really lean this time of year as looking at schedules more than thinking about personnel, because I've been preaching this regularly that every year is a roster rebuild now. That's the nature of the game. And you were talking about money and how to structure this stuff. It's a combination of continuing to recruit, top prospects and hope that you can keep them happy and keep them in your program, because you sure as hell don't want to invest that time and money in developing players for somebody else if they bolt, if they're unhappy. But you've got to get the right blend of transfer players and cultivate and try to keep the guys that you've got. And, it's just, until I see these teams on the field, I don't know what to expect. But I do know what to expect with Miami's schedule. They don't play Louisville this year. They don't play SMU. I don't think they even play Virginia. That's the three other teams in the ACC that are getting attention. They do have to play Clemson. Who knows what Dabo's going to have? This is a big year for Dabo, I think.
Really big.
But the bottom line is Miami's going to have to show me. But I think with their schedule, even if they don't play well, they have a good chance to be a major factor. But I don't think this team is better than last year's team. They've added some pieces, but last year's team just had the right something about them. And I still don't think Cristobal's a very good coach. We have one of our shows on the Keefer Sports Network is the Fanatical podcast with legend and Bama hater who's a huge Miami fan, and he absolutely hates Cristobal. He said, he's lost more games personally for us than he's won. So we'll see. With Miami, with a lot of expectations, they kind of snuck up on everybody last year, but I think there's a lot of spotlight on them this year. We'll see how they handle it.
Kind of hard to believe we've been talking 15 minutes and haven't mentioned this number 5 team here, but Kirby Smart, he's 0-2 in playoff games. Both those losses coming in New Orleans. Gunnar Stockton is back again, and it would seem to think that now that he's got some pieces that have been there for a while and he's gotten the rust off a little bit, if there could be ever rust on Kirby Smart, that Georgia will have a say in the national title this year. What's your thoughts?
Well, they're going to be able to line up and run the ball. They've got a stable of running backs. They've got offensive line that had baptism under fire last year. They played a lot of freshmen that they didn't count on playing because of injuries, and they got a lot of experience. Georgia in the front on offense is going to be good. The question with Georgia is they lost their 3 top wide receivers, and I don't think they've addressed that need very well. They've got a couple guys they're counting on to step up. They do have a loaded tight end room. They've got 3 of the top tight ends in the country. I don't know if Mike Bobo, though, is competent enough because he's, last year, the Ole Miss game, they won in Athens. Lawson Lucky, the tight end, caught 3 touchdown passes in that game, had 7 catches. In the Sugar Bowl against Ole Miss, the same defense that Lucky just owned in Athens, they didn't target him a single time in that game. One time, yeah. Didn't throw a pass anywhere near him. It made absolutely no sense. I'm not a Mike Bobo guy. We'll see. If he's got all the pieces, I think anybody can be a good offensive coordinator, but I think they're going to have to make adjustments. Defensively, Georgia's loaded. They're going to be really tough to score on. And this is the easiest schedule that Georgia has had in 10 years. They don't play Texas. They don't play Texas A&M. They don't play Tennessee, and they don't play LSU. So that gives you a little bit of an indication. They do have to go to Alabama and to Ole Miss, but I think Ole Miss is going to take a step back under the village idiot Pete Golding.
There's your 5 teams right there that are slam dunk, should be right there in the mix. Notice I did not mention Alabama. The next tier are teams that, they should be there. We're going to have to take a look at them. They should prevail. There's only 2 of them. Indiana, who's just proved last season that their eyes under Cignetti, they deserve to be there. They won the big games when they had to. The culture's established. The belief in Bloomington has shifted to chasing respect, to chasing championships. There's no reason why Indiana can't be a top 10 team again this year. And I can't believe we're saying that, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, Cignetti's built the right foundation. Now, this is different personnel. It's not like college football in days of past years. A couple of their major transfer pieces last year, including their All-American center that they got from Notre Dame, is gone to the pros. He kind of anchored that really successful offensive line, which was him and a bunch of 2- and 3-star guys. So again, you don't know what they're going to have until they get on the field. But they do play Ohio State this year. They do play Oregon again. So we'll see if Cignetti is the magic man. All the latest coaching rankings have Cignetti number 1. He's only been a major college coach for 2 years. Yeah. He's going to have to show me a little more of a resume than that. What they did last year was miraculous, but I can't help but think, Tony, that was lightning in a bottle. They just had the perfect mix, the perfect guys that all bought in and all played as a unit. And in football, that's a huge factor that you don't see in this age of me.
They will not creep up on anybody for sure. The other team that should be certainly in the mix, and they should be, they're Texas. There's oil money down there. You got Steve Sarkisian, who obviously a lot of people think is the perfect fit there. You got a quarterback coming back now for a second season after we unfairly, I think, put a lot of crap on him last year because of his last name.
It wasn't his fault, but everybody else was pumping him up like he was the second coming of the Lord.
And he's smart. He's making more money right now doing commercials for Axe and for Cheez-Its than he probably will make in the National Football League.
Texas is giving him $6.8 million is how much he's making from Texas this year.
So Texas is this is another one of those programs that, quite frankly, they should be there every year. And quite frankly, I want to see more from Steve Sarkisian this year. I want to see more.
Yeah, I don't. I think Sarkisian is at a crossroads. Like you said, there's money and then there's oil money. Texas has it to spend. They go out and get Cam Coleman. They go out and get a couple of 1,000-yard running backs. They seem to have all the pieces, but Tony, when push comes to shove for Texas in recent years, they just haven't been tough enough to win. Yep. Georgia has beaten them 3 times in the last 2 years just by physically battering them. I said last year they were going to go. I said before the year they were going to be the biggest bust because I could see them losing 4 games last year, and they end up losing 3 of those 4, including the trip to the swamp. A bad Florida Gator team beat them on the road last year. I thought they might lose to Oklahoma or Texas A&M as the other loss because they did lose to Georgia and Florida, but they did manage to beat both of their rivals. So everything is there for Texas. They've got all the pieces, but are they tough enough up front on the defensive and offensive lines to really get it done? Arch Manning was a flop last year, but it wasn't all his fault. The guy was running for his life half the time. It was terrible protection by a couple guys drafted in the NFL. They just underperformed, and that's got to be some kind of coaching.
And brought in a couple of really nice transfers too from West Coast. That's going to make a big difference on their offensive line because again, you could have the greatest quarterback. You got to be protected. Ask Joe Burrow.
Got to protect him.
I have another show coming up here in 10 minutes. And I just called the guy and said, I'm rolling. We're just going to have to push off because I'm talking to Kip Keefer. We're doing college football, and I want to keep rolling here.
And when you get Kip Keefer these days, it's tough.
It's a lawyer show, so they can wait. They make me wait. But it's another show. It's called No Ifs, Ands, or Buts. You can hear it on Tony Kurre Radio.
Cool.
So that show, it's with Matt Butts, but Matt's cool. He's going to wait off for a little bit. I just told him I'd get in touch. Roster's worth a second look. There's 5 teams, and roster's worth a second look. Lane Kiffin didn't take the LSU job to win 9 ball games, and he's going to have to get after it right away with Sam Leavitt. Can LSU be a shoe? I can't think of another coach that more people are probably rooting against Lane Kiffin.
Oh, yeah.
He has not stayed in anyone's bed more than maybe a night or two. But he wins everywhere he goes. I mean, not national title wins, but his LSU were the last 3 of the last 4 coaches. Brian Kelly, which is so fucking funny that Brian Kelly went there and the last 3 coaches won national titles, including Ed Orgeron. And Brian Kelly goes down there and he gets thrown out after the 8th and 9th ball. I think that is so hilarious because he's such a hothead piece of shit. And I think it's so funny that you see Ed Orgeron, he had Joe Burrow and he had a great defense, but he wins the national title there. Brian Kelly goes down there, trips up Notre Dame, goes, just take that job knowing he's going to win a national title. And now he's calling West Coast games on CBS. I think it's hilarious.
Doesn't even last through his 3rd season.
Can Lane Kiffin get it done? He's going to win a national title at LSU, right?
I would think the indications were he will. I don't know about this year. It's a bunch of mercenaries. You never know until you see those guys on the field as a team. They bought everybody they could get. I think the payroll's up to $46 million now for this group of players. It's just outlandish. But the big question there is, and it's been like top secret. I've got friends in the CIA I'm reaching out to try to find out what the hell's going on. Is Sam Leavitt, he had surgery on his foot and it was slowly responding in the spring. Is he going to be healthy and 100%? We've seen the last couple of years quarterbacks in action that are not 100%. And it's not a pretty picture. DJ Lagway last year at Florida, I'm convinced he was not healthy from his knee surgery and had a really big step back for the Gators last year. And Ty Simpson broke a rib halfway through the year for Alabama and continued to play. If a quarterback is not 100%, they can't perform up to the highest level. So Leavitt to me is a big question because the backup at LSU is a kid that was a 5-star recruit at USC that they got to come to Baton Rouge of the name Van Dyke, but he has not taken a competitive snap in college football yet. So Lane could have a whole mess of problems. And what about that week 3 game, Tony? me early in the year, LSU at Ole Miss. I think Lane Kiffin's going to need a detail of Navy SEALs to guard him at the Oxford game.
Do you remember when Nick Saban came back to where'd he go? And they burned him in effigy. They burned him outside the stadium in a dummy. It looked just like Lane Kiffin. I cannot remember which game it was.
Probably the first time Alabama came back to LSU.
It probably was, but they burned him in effigy, and I'm sure they'll have something burning for Lane Kiffin. Another interesting squad that we normally don't talk a whole lot about, but you have to. But the only reason we're talking about this team is because of the money. Cody Campbell, who played for Texas Tech back in the early 2000s, I think he was 2004. He's a homer. He's an alumni, but he is a businessman. Is he a great coach? I don't know. We'll find out. But Texas Tech, people say, listen, look out for Texas Tech, because as long as you got the money to spend, man, you should be in the thick every single year. And Texas Tech is in that position. Can Cody Campbell get it done?
Well, he spent $5 million for a quarterback that ended up being ruled ineligible, and he's going to be sitting out the entire season. Sorsby couldn't even get in the NFL draft, the supplemental draft. So, yeah, that was not a very good investment. They're going to go with a guy named Hammond, who was on the squad last year. That doesn't sound like that great of an option. Yeah, they've spent a lot of money, but you know, when it came down to squaring off against Miami last year, they were exposed as a fraud. The Big 12 really has a lot of decent teams, but really doesn't have any premier teams. And that's why Cody Campbell has been going through all of these machinations of trying to get Texas Tech on a level playing field. The ultimate capitalist who's made billions of dollars in the oil business is trying to convince Congress to pass a bill that socializes college football and splits up all the TV money equally. And the SEC says, and the Big Ten say, not so fast. We've got the best product. We're not for that.
No.
So nothing's going to get done in Washington. The Cody Campbell to the rescue mission has kind of failed. I think Texas Tech, I think the shine is off there. I think they had a chance to make some noise last year. And at the end of the day, they just weren't good enough.
We should continue the show next week, but I want to continue here just because I'm jonesing on it. But we can't go through some of these other teams. USC, I'm just going to throw some out because we got to get into Alabama because they're part of this next tier, which I can't believe they're in the third tier, by the way, in this particular situation, because I got a really interesting question I want to ask you. USC, number one recruiting class. No reason why Lincoln Riley shouldn't be right there in the mix. Oklahoma is in this mix. A healthy John Mateer certainly is going to have a big change and a big part of that. A&M is certainly in this mix as well.
Oil money.
Yeah, then we're going to get into some of the dark horses, but Alabama is in this third tier. He says Kalen DeBoer's offensive team fully established under Ryan Grubb, quarterback position capable of hands. Austin Mack, Keelan Russell. I know a lot of people want to see Keelan Russell win that job. The defense has the speed, playmaking ability. Something just doesn't feel right to me. I feel like Alabama's being left behind with this new way of looking at college football. I can't even describe exactly what I mean, but I feel like they're not keeping up to speed. And I don't know if it's because of the money. I would have thought for sure that if this is down to a money game, that Alabama would be in the mix, and Alabama hasn't been there with the money. The money's not there like it should be. And I don't know if things are getting really tight down there in Tuscaloosa. I don't know what the situation is, but money's never been we're talking about the ones they got the waterfall in the locker room. I mean, this is where Alabama would spend all the money in the world to do whatever it takes. Now all of a sudden, when they really need to put in the pockets of their players, it doesn't seem like it's there. Am I missing something here? And I don't think Kalen DeBoer, while I like him, I think he's a good coach. I think you can win there in Alabama. Some just feels like they're being left out of the party a little bit. Am I missing something here?
No, I don't think so. Kalen DeBoer has been a good coach. I don't know if he's a fit at Alabama. I think replacing Nick Saban with a guy that's kind of laid back, West Coast style attitude that Kalen DeBoer has. I questioned at the time whether it was going to be a cultural fit. I think DeBoer's done a good job of stockpiling talent, and we'll see how many of those. Right now, recruits of the last 2 years, they've only lost one guy to transfer from the guys that they've recruited.
Which should tell you a lot. That's
impressive.
That really is.
But going into this season, they've only got 9 seniors on the roster. That is a real skimpy amount for any team. They've got a very, very good defense on paper, and they played pretty good defense at times last year, but they were still vulnerable. But the real question comes down to this Alabama team once again, Tony. Can they run the football? In the SEC, it's pretty basic. And the old timers said it, and it's still true today. You run the football and you stop the run is the key to winning in the SEC. It's a physical league. It's not a West Coast offense kind of a situation. Teams that tried that style in the SEC, Mike Leach had some success with it. Of course, Hugh Freeze back in the day at Ole Miss when it was innovative still, made a little bit of noise, but those teams don't consistently win. It's still a physical league, and I just think this Alabama team's been a little soft the last couple of years, and we will see.
I haven't seen, the one thing that Alabama, whenever Alabama doesn't play well, I have not seen the leadership.
Well, that's the other thing.
I don't know who the leader is. I don't think Simpson was necessarily the leader last year. I don't see the leadership that I like to see on either side of the ball right now, and that's a big piece I think is missing for Alabama right now.
And of all people, our guy, the legend, says, I got to be real here, folks. And this has got a lot of reaction on social media because we've run that clip. He says, we do not have a playoff roster for 2026. And for him to say that is pretty alarming because talk about seeing the world through rose or crimson colored glasses. Legend is the guy. And he doubts that this is a playoff team. He hopes they can go 9-3, but he's not even sure that would get them in the playoffs because their schedule pretty daunting with trips to LSU, and they've got trips that they're at Tennessee. They've got Georgia coming in, and one other big challenge. Oh, Texas A&M coming into Tuscaloosa. That's 4 really tough games. They open with 5 games that are winnable. They've got to win all 5 of those to really get started. They can't trip up against Kentucky or South Carolina, which could be a little bit dicey assignments, and even Florida State. Daniels, the quarterback from Auburn, is now the quarterback at Florida State, and he gave Alabama fits last year in the Iron Bowl. Mm-hmm. So that's 3 games in the first 5 that they should win. But if they even stumble in one of those, it's going to be trouble because the next 4 of those games I just mentioned, LSU, Georgia, Texas A&M, and at Tennessee. And then they finish with 3 kind of weak games. Arkansas, well, we don't know about Auburn. We don't know if that's going to be a weak game, but it is in Tuscaloosa. So I think they've got to win all 5 of those first games, at least split those middle 4, and then sweep the last 3 against, I don't know, they played somebody, some cupcake in the middle, but they need to sweep the last 3 and go 10-2. And I think they'll be in the playoffs, but I think that's up in the air as far as if that's possible. They could lose 3 out of 4 or all 4 of those games in the middle of the schedule.
I'm going to throw a potpourri of teams because we're running along. And again, we could go. We'll do this again next week because I know this is going to get a million listens, and we should talk college football all the way till football season. First year coaches at Ole Miss, at Michigan, I think are kind of interesting. You can comment on that as well. His dark horses in order: BYU, SMU, Houston, Washington, Tennessee, Louisville, South Carolina, Oak State, and UNLV.
Oklahoma State's on that list?
Oklahoma State is on that list.
They were the worst program in history.
Those are his dark horses. He's like, fill my email up at the end of the season. I want to hear it right now. But those are the teams he said they may have some really interesting things to say about who plays for a national title. And again, next year, we're talking 24 teams, right? Next year is a good possibility that you may see a UNLV or South Carolina get in. Strong possibility. This year with only 12, I'm not so sure. Yeah. Out of those teams, I just said, does anything kind of, I think the Ole Miss and Michigan thing is really interesting. You had a brand new culture at Michigan with a guy who used to sleep with everybody. And I can't believe that crap went on for 2 years. No one said anything. And then, of course, at Ole Miss, you got Golding. It's the Golding time. And all of a sudden, they're kind of walking around going, well, we just had just a major, incredible year, but we lost our coach. So I wonder what it's going to be like down there.
Lost the whole staff, except for Golding.
Yeah, what's it going to be like down in the Grove? So your thoughts on some of those teams?
I think Ole Miss is going to take a step back, Tony. They lost a lot of key people on defense. Yes, Chambliss and the running back are back, and they're going to be formidable. But I don't know. Chambliss was just so magical last year. There's such expectation. This guy, we were joking about his name 3 weeks into the season. Trinidad Chambliss.
Trinidad, yeah. I can remember you saying Trinidad Chambliss. Who's Trinidad Chambliss?
Yeah. He's like a guy that would be doing a coffee commercial.
Yeah.
But this is Trinidad Chambliss.
Yes.
But anyway, there's a difference this year. He came out of nowhere. Austin Simmons was the heir apparent there to Jackson Dart. He got hurt in the second week of the year and enter Trinidad Chambliss, and Simmons didn't see the field the rest of the year. By the way, he is the starting quarterback this year for Missouri. Austin Simmons has transferred there, so that's interesting. That's an established quarterback that's going to that program to take the place of Brady Cook, who, after 15 years at the helm for Missouri, has finally moved on. But I just don't see. Ole Miss had a magic season last year. I just think they're going to take a step back. Pete Golding is not qualified to be a college head coach. If you look at his resume, it's skimpy at best. The reason he has been able to be successful is he is a hell of a relentless recruiter who doesn't mind cheating and bending the rules. And just ask Dabo, calling their big 5-star transfer guy in his first, actually on his cell phone. Pete Golding himself called him on his cell phone his first day in class at Clemson and in the spring of semester, and said, hey, you need to come take another look at us. That is textbook tampering. You cannot do that. The head coach cannot call a guy on his cell phone while he's sitting in class at his new university. So Pete Golding's probably going to get some days from the toothless NCAA. But Pete Golding is just a guy who doesn't mind bending the rules. Remember, he got in all the controversy of telling the Manning family, well, if you guys are leaning Texas, that's fine, but let's just hope Sark can stay off the bottle. That's the kind of dirty pool this guy plays.
That is dirty. Yeah, he had a problem at USC with that. He liked to drink before practices, but he cleaned it up pretty well. One of the reasons too, I think that he's got, and this guy does his homework. UNLV, of course, you know who the head coach is there. All he's got to do is Dan Mullen. All he's got to do is win his group of 6 games. UNLV,
Case, is out in Las Vegas, and Dan Case says, Dan went to Kenny Chesney at the Sphere 7 nights in a row during the season. And watch every one of those performances on his gig out there. So he says Dan's living the life in Las Vegas.
I like Dan Mullen. I think he's great.
He's a character.
I thought he was really good on television too. Last team, bottom of the screen, it's got a real big question mark. My son's been saying it for 3 years now, in his 4th year. CLEMSON. Clemson. What are they going to be like? You got a guy who's won not 1, but 2 national titles, has rewritten the book, has done a fantastic job at Clemson. He will go down as one of the greatest head coaches in Clemson history, period. We know how he likes to coach. He's not really big into the transfer portal. I don't know what the money situation is there at Clemson, but I do know that they need to change something else, or he's going to be looking for a job, which I cannot believe. For me, I'm a loyalist, and probably to a fault, I'm a loyalist. I would open the checkbook if Kalen DeBoer is getting a 7-year extension worth $84 million, and I've got a guy that's won 2 national titles. It's just a stick in the mud because he doesn't want to coach differently. I'm still saying, listen, this is your team. Please do the best you can. I know what you're made of, but you're going to go out the way you want to go out. We're never going to fire Dabo Swinney. I don't think they can do that at Clemson, but he's certainly making it more difficult on the higher ups there at Clemson and what they should need to do with him if, in fact, he wins a 7 or 8 game campaign again this year.
Well, he's got another new defensive coordinator this year. And I think if you really look objectively at Clemson, Dabo's teams have not been the same since he lost his offensive coordinator to go to Arkansas. And he lost Venables, the defensive coordinator, who really those Clemson teams were awesome defense.
When Venables left, that was one of that. For me, it felt a lot like the loss of Kirby Smart, but Nick Saban is a hell of a coach.
And Nick's teams were never the same after Kirby left.
But you knew just how important Brent Venables was after he left, because they have not been the same since he left. Continue.
And last year, you guys were high on Clemson because their productivity was back. But I didn't like Clemson last year. Not anything against Dabo or their personnel. Once again, I looked at the schedule and I said early in the year, I see 4 really tough games here. I think they could lose every one of them. And they basically did. Yeah. You thought I was insane when I said they're not going to beat Georgia Tech at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning in week 3 because Tech's got a lot of potential this year.
Well, and you want to talk about, and you said earlier in the show, you want to talk about line play, man. Kay Klubnik, who is, for all due practical purposes, I mean, he's right there with Arch Manning as far as the guy had 33 touchdowns and 3 picks the year before. There's no reason to think that he wasn't going to have a great season. He was running for his life in his third year.
They didn't protect him at all.
No, not at all.
And they couldn't run the ball.
And quite frankly, he wasn't as good of a quarterback as I think a lot of people thought. I think he was put in a lot of situations.
And even guys like Greg McElroy said before the year, Klubnik's the slam dunk winner of the Heisman Trophy this year. He wasn't on the Arch Manning train, but he was on the wrong train, southbound as well. It's going to be interesting because this is the first year, I think, for Dabo that there's really no expectations for Clemson. So maybe this is the year that he can just kind of rally the troops and play the chip on the shoulder of we're getting no respect. He's go the Rodney Dangerfield. Hey, I'm telling you, we're getting no respect. So maybe that's going to be a good thing for Clemson, who's been shrouded with expectation for all of these years.
Who makes it longer at their respective schools? Kalen DeBoer or Dabo Sweeney?
Wow, I don't. I guess both brands are so prominent that's a hard question to answer. But Dabo's established. Kalen DeBoer, okay, it's great that he went 112-3 at Sioux Falls, and everybody says, well, he's won every place he's been. He's only been at Fresno State for 2 years and Washington for 2 years. Yeah.
We've seen that Mike Price thing. We've seen how that works. That part of the country is a different style of football. I'm sorry.
It is.
It's just and ask Mike Leach about it. He was out there for a long period of time, and he will tell you he stayed up late at night trying to figure out what the hell to do at Mississippi State. I said, you can't throw the football 76% of the time in the BNCC. You can't do it. Nope. And he tried. And listen, he brought a lot of notoriety. God rest his soul. I love that man. I miss him so badly.
He was awesome.
But he's great. Hey, fantastic show. Let's do it again next week. We'll get more into it. I want to do college football all the way out. And of course, we are going to be on right before the ABC SEC game of the year. Next week, I'm going to go through some of the scheduling. It's going to be fantastic. And of course, check our TV show out with the legend, myself, as well as Keefer Perspective. And we're going to do bone fragments. So you're going to be out done the SEC games or some of the SEC meetings. So we're going to have a lot of tape from you. Looking forward to that. And if you missed the show this past week, you were in Atlanta doing a fantastic job. So thank you so much. We'll do Keefer and Curry Sports again next week. I got to fly, man. I got to go talk to lawyers.
That sounds good. I don't like talking to lawyers, so you go ahead and take that one.
Well, it's just a show this time. I'm actually making money this time. So
that's
they're
good
actually
to know.
paying me. So this is a good thing. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.